That's when the first Kuuma was made.
Yeah.
1975.
I have an image of you and your dad sitting in the garage in winter in Tower, Minnesota, when it's cold as heck, tinkering with how wood burns. Is that about how
that's where we started with the furnace part.
Mm-hmm.
But my dad and his dad had already been in the sauna, making sauna stoves for probably 30 years before that. You know, our sauna business is actually over 100 years old, because my dad died at 80, and him and his dad had done it for many years before he even, you know, and he was a lot older than my dad.
How old were you when you started welding?
Let's see, I probably was maybe 20 something.
And did your grandfather?
My dad taught me how.
Did your grandfather teach you how?
No,
to
my
weld?
dad did.
Your dad did.
Yeah.
But your grandfather was quite a welder.
He was an expert welder. Yeah, he was. Well, he was. He was the head welder at Erie Mining Company, and he also went down to Duluth in the shipyards and welded down there. And they always people have told me that he was the #1 welder they had in the shipyards too. So, but it rubbed off onto my dad. My dad taught me, and then I learned a lot on my own once we started the stove business. You know, the one we have on display here, coming in the building, that was one of the original sauna stoves that my grandfather made. And the reason why I can say that is because Mike Salo from Mountain Lake called up and told me that Billy McCumber had one of your dad's or your grandfather's original stoves, and he knows for sure it was because he watched him weld with the stick rod across the top with the welding rods, Sweat King. Right. And that's the only one that we ever saw that had that written on there. And when we got it over here, I took and lightened them up with white paint so that you could see that where it was welded, because they stick out about a 1/4 inch.
I see.
The rod marks, Sweat King.
Yeah.
So I knew it was my grandfather's. But Mike Salo said, that I was a little boy and I watched your grandfather weld Sweat King on one of his first stoves ever.
Amazing.
And I've got it here on display. See, my dad and my grandfather, when they made sauna stoves, they were more some barrel stove. The door leaked air, there's no baffle, there's no brick lining. It was like a glorified barrel stove. Efficiency probably 15%. In the 1970s, when my dad was kind of selling those stoves on the side that my grandpa Richard would weld, and then he would help weld, I told my dad, I said, you know, we should make this stove like our sauna stove, like our stove, where we have brick lining and a baffle to increase the efficiency. So that's when I started doing that, because I was thinking, you know, in order to sell these for people's houses and stuff, you're going to need a UL approval on it, and it's got to be more safe. You can't have a door that leaks air all over the place and have a fire that runs away on you. In the 70s, I took that sauna stove and redesigned that whole thing myself. My dad didn't want to monkey with it. He was too busy with politics and business and teaching school and everything else. And then I brick lined it, put a baffle in there, and changed the door so it was airtight, all gasketed door and stuff. And then I would say the efficiency once I made those changes was probably up 50%.
Yeah.
Now with the smokeless burn and the new stove, we're in the 75 to 85%. And in order to get over 80% on efficiency for any wood stove, even on a furnace here, this is like 80%. That's tremendous, because you got to figure that, you know, you got water in every piece of wood. And in order to drive that water off, you're using a lot of your valuable energy to drive that moisture off the wood. The whole trick is keep the fire in the front and keep the logs cooler until it moves backward. You want the gases coming off when you're getting to that point in the burn. You don't want it coming off at the beginning, because then you got like an overheated stove. You know, and too much heat coming off the wood. But you know the original sauna stoves though, when I redesigned them with the brick and the baffle and the airtight, we waited a while until 2004 before we actually submitted to UL, because we wanted to, when people started using them in houses or at cabins where you got these expensive saunas. I mean, I had a guy come into the shop one day and picked up his sauna stove. He said, I've got $30,000 in my sauna already. And if they're burning down because of your stove, you're going to get sued, you know. They're going to come back at the manufacturer. In order to prevent that, or to help stop that from happening, you want to get a UL approval on it, which we did. But that was in 2004 when we first started with the UL approval on the wood sauna stoves. But at that time, they were probably only 50% efficient. They didn't have the new thing that I have in the new stove now. I mean, I've added onto this new stove because I want it to be environmentally friendly as possible and get rid of the smoke. And that's what I've done. It took me 3 years to do it. You know, because
that's on top of 30 years of vapor fire work.
But I went from an automatic, an automatic controlled computerized burn to a manual draft that you're setting yourself and running it. But you want to get it so that when it's a manual setting, that it's easy for the operator to get to that point of being a clean burn. You don't want to have them struggling. Where do I set this thing? No, this is very simple.
Set it.
Open up wide open to begin with. Drop it to halfway after about 5 minutes or so, and then let it go. And then if you have a lot of coals in there at the end of the burn and you're going to refire with another 3-4 pieces of wood, you can just go open up to the top at first, wide open, and then drop it down to even less than the 1/8 mark, probably down to 1/16. That's all you need. You want it operator friendly.
Yeah.
That's why this works so good. It's operator friendly.
Yeah.
And that sauna stove, it's hard to do with a manual draft, but it's operator friendly now. Makes it so much better in the real world. And like I told you in the sauna, don't go against the law of nature. Don't try to force smoke down. Don't try to go through any grates down. Don't try to circulate it outside the stove like that stove that you showed me on the internet. You're gonna have nothing but trouble. Because what happens is wood dies out and then those gases build up in there, and when they reignite, it blows. It's like a gas furnace blowing up. It'll puff right through the door gasket and everything else.
What do you think Herbert would be thinking about Lamppa manufacturing today?
My dad?
Yeah.
Oh, if he could see this building even, he would flip out. I mean, even in the old shop, when we were welding all those stoves over there, we made 1,000 stoves in 1 year over there at one time, Kuuma, regular Kuumas. But he even was so impressed then. But now, when he can see that we've got things that are burning without any smoke, and was something that was right up his alley, that hey, environmental friendly, and it's something that's good for the world, and it's going to create employment for people in Power and Sedan, and he put all these spots for all these buildings. There's 3 more over this way, and then there's a couple over there. So he was always, what they always said about my dad, people couldn't believe the foresight. He was always thinking future. Like the cemetery buildings, all this for industrial park, the charter school.
Well, it's rubbed off on you as well. I mean, the foresight that you've had, environmental, and you were direct to consumer. You would just sell to the guy. You had no dealer network. I mean, you kind of predicted this internet thing where people can find a quality stove and buy direct from the manufacturer.
Yeah, Garrett started that. I didn't get much involved with the internet, but he was always, every time he'd call me, gotta do something with the internet. I said, hey, it'll sell itself if it's good, but still you gotta get the word out there so they know what you got. And that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, what's it like to have your son run the business?
Great.
And your daughter as the face of this advertising?
Yeah, it's great. It's really good. It's a family thing. And Garrett's got this little boy now, he's 3 years old.
Yeah.
So he'll be the 5th generation, which is pretty good. And he's here all the time. He comes here on Tuesday and he's running around the shop. I take him all over. He goes, sits on a forklift and beeps the horn back and forth and waves to all the guys. He goes up to Jason, the sheet metal guy I wanted to tell you about what he said to him. Jason came back the next day. He says, I never saw a 3-year-old kid. He said, he turned around and said, have a nice day, Jason. When he walked away. How many 3-year-olds would ever say something like that?
Are you heating with vapor fire at home in the winter?
Oh, all the time. I've been burning my vapor fire for 50 years. I haven't cleaned my chimney yet. I take my pipes off once a year because you get a little bit of carbon in there. And carbon, if they ever got burned, it could burn, but the way this stove was designed, you can't get much heat in there or a flame in there to get it on fire anyway. But I'm always building for safety. So I take my pipes off, I take them outside and I blow them out, blow the carbon out and put them back on. I don't scrape them even. I just take them to my shop vac and blow them out.
What's it like in this community to run into people that have had their Kuuma for 30, 40, 50 years?
Yeah. I mean, they're built like tanks. Yeah. These things will last. The only thing is, to be safe, you got to take your pipes apart and check them, and vacuum it out on top of the baffle inside there. You got to be, and also keep the front clean of ashes so the air can get to the wood. But it's a great stove, and if you burn it right, open it up, get it hot, and then lower it down near the bottom, you get a fairly decent burn.
Yes.
And if you burn with the like you used to do, where you start the fire on top, and you get a pretty smokeless burn that way too. It's a little more monkey business. This one, the new model, is so much easier, you know, and you don't have to be so conscious about that. But burning the wood clean is really very important.
Yeah.
But when I was in that old building and testing over there, that was my main goal. And I worked on it, and I tell you what, I was in that building when it was below zero, and it wasn't very warm in there at first. I had to huddle up near that stove when I was making changes, laying on the floor. It was tough. Mm-hmm. I'm glad I got it to where it is now. I really love it. I love that little sauna stove. It works beautiful.
It does.
It's going to be great for people, and it's so easy to operate. You know, just lift the lift up a little lever to the top, and then lower it down to where you want it.
Well, again,
easy to operate.
When you say easy to operate, what's amazing to me is you load it, you light it, and you close that door, and you never have to open the door again.
Until the end, yeah. Until the coals, until you got coals. Or let it go right out.
Yeah.
Or let it burn right out.
Well, you taught me to pull the coals forward.
Yeah.
And then I bring the middle lever up, and then that is the bake and breathe method. It dries out my sauna.
Well, like I did on Saturday, because they had a nice hot fire going there all day. And when I came here, it was a nice bed of coals in the back, but it was pretty well burnt out after about 5 hours. And when they left, I said, well, I'm going to try the 3 pieces in my triangle. Should always burn a triangle-shaped pile anyway. At least 3 pieces, 2 on the bottom, 1 between. Otherwise, the gases don't interact and you don't get the good burn. So anyway, I'm going to try my triangle-shaped pile on those bed of coals. So I clean the front, pull the coals forward, put those 3 pieces there, open it up for about 2-3 minutes, get it hot, get the wood started on fire, and close it down to 1/16. And I pulled that rod out of there. When I came Saturday morning, there was hardly nothing on the rod. I don't know if I showed it to you or not. I'll show you.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit of, no creosote, not just a little bit of carbon on it. It's perfect burn. That was a 1/16 of an inch.
But what I love about pulling the coals forward for that, it bakes the hot room.
Oh yeah, without adding wood, huh?
No wood.
Yeah.
No.
Well, you get that. Then there's heat left in those coals.
Exactly.
And it's like a blue. There's a lot of methane still left in those coals.
And I come back to sauna again, and my firebox is clean. There's no ash in there.
I know.
And I only have to empty that ash pan maybe every 15 saunas. What's a final word to people that are looking to buy a sauna stove? Tower, Minnesota, multi-generation company. What do you want to say to people?
Well, they should get one of my signature stoves because it's actually the stainless steel we use in the new ones now. Even it's top grade, and you can't find stoves made like this anywhere.
Good. Well, thanks for being on this little impromptu visit. It's so good to visit with you, Daryl.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Yeah. You can't find stoves made like this anywhere.